is up, YouTube viewers? My name is Kiss, and today I'm reacting to Let's Talk About a Very Scary Rumor on the Future of Life is Strange by Podcast Now.
What's up, everybody? We're on a podcast.
I love, you hear it. I love his intro. But yeah, let's hear what he has to say. Let's watch.
Now, I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about a pretty interesting and also pretty scary Life is Strange rumor. This very much lines up. We're going to talk about, what this means for Life is Strange, what this means for Deck 9, and then also it kind of passes just like the smell test, right? Like you look at what's happening with Deck 9, even like the confirmed stuff, and you say, writing is kind of on the wall, right? Then you read this, and you say, okay, everything kind of is linking up. So this started 10 days ago. There was an original post, and there's actually, again, a former developer that responded to it only about a day ago. And they said, it is Double Exposure 2 with a more likely release of 2026.
Coming sooner than originally. Okay, that's
Double
good.
Exposure 2 was part of Square's contract with Deck 9 for Double Exposure. It was never not going to be made.
Yeah, because we saw
Deck 9 is laying off
every
Max department one at a time after they finish their last.
We saw Max Caulfield was going to come back. Oh, but you think the game would be better since they laid off a huge chunk of their workforce? Like they would actually, too many cooks in the kitchen? So they could kind of focus on a good game now and kind of make up for the lack of and what all the unanswered questions, They tried to make it Infinity War and failed. But hey.
Work, animation, design, QA, engineering, one at a time until the game is out. Mark Lyons, Jeff Litchford, and Stephen Frost were not able to secure additional projects, so they will tear out the entire dev team in the hopes of finding a way to survive later on. So this post, or like how this originated, right?
The writer and director were fired, so I gotta hear that again. I'm sorry if...
Hopes of finding a way to survive. Frost were not able to secure additional projects, so they will tear out the entire dev team in the hopes of finding a way to survive later on. So this post, or like how this originated, right? This was moved.
Bring it back to its roots.
A different subreddit, and I think behind the scenes it was verified that, like, yeah, this is going to happen. And that that username, that Lady Dev Hart, like that's already been checked out, I believe, in the past several months. They were, I believe, the ones who talked about just the troubles overall with Life is Strange Double Exposure. That might actually go back like close to a year at this point, right? When Double Exposure came out, last October. So they are not new to like the Life is Strange discussion, social media discussion. There's really no reason to doubt it, especially with, again, verification and just, they've been right before. We've kind of been through that. So, okay, the checks and balances, that's all done. What about what was actually said? Again, does it pass like just that smell test? It does, in the way that I don't think you end your game talking about like Max Caulfield will return, and just the way the way they were talking about the game, the way they were still doing. Remember they had those almost conventions, right? Twice, one in the U.S., I think one in the U.K., where they invited people and they said, hey, give us your feedback. And look, I still look at that with somewhat like optimism, where it's like, all right, like at least they're trying to understand what people like about Life is Strange. Maybe not even just in hopes for the next game, but also like going forward, okay? Or like after even the next game, right? So you have all of that, but again, that was something in our faces. Like we knew that. So the writing was on the wall that we were probably going to get like another Life is Strange game, even with the troubles and the non-success, the double.
This time I hope it's longer. I already know that since you guys shitted on Chloe, excuse me for cursing, I already know, I know not to expect her. Perhaps maybe it's some kind of red herring, and then she shows up later, but just give us a good story at this point. Tie up all the loose ends.
It lost Square Enix an incredible amount of money, right? So that didn't work, but there was always this belief from pretty much everywhere, including official channels, that game was still going to happen, right? Then, on the flip side, like the negative stuff, Deck 9 has been laying people off. They've had multiple waves of laying people off, and, there's really not a lot of people left, if at all, from, say, even going back to before the storm. That's a good starting point to go back to, right? I believe, didn't they just let go of some of the heads that were...
But they keep The one thing I don't understand is if you keep crapping on Chloe, why feature the voice actress? Not even Ashley, but the other one. Oh, wait, or was it Ashley? Yeah, whichever, whomever voiced her in Double Exposure. Why why do you keep bringing that back up if it's not foreshadowing? Whatever.
Were still around, but that worked on Before the Storm. So, this is an entirely new studio, but at the same time, it's also a studio that seems to be shedding more than it's growing, right? Like they're laying off people in batches, and it doesn't really seem like they're staffing up in any way. And that's, again, like that's official. That's, you can look at it. You can look at that they've had layoffs. You can look at job postings. Like, it doesn't match where you're losing people, but you're not really gaining them at the same rate. So again, like you can officially see something is wrong. And then you have this. Then you have what they said. So, it would be, to me, it would actually be kind of shocking if that game came out next year. I think that would be more of like a byproduct of just rushing it. Because if everything else is true, which there's, again, at this point, really no reason to doubt it, I guess I shouldn't doubt the idea that the game could come out next year. I mean, like, they're on these 3-year cycles. Normally, they could make a Life is Strange game every 3 years, or just make a game every 3 years. And number one, that is faster, I would say, than most studios. And number two, if the point is literally to make this game and then to just like shut the doors, shut everything down, if that's the case, and then also you have to wonder about their care for the game, which I'll talk about in a second, that really, really worries me. With all that being said, I can see them rushing, right? Where it's like, hey, well, we could use another year in a perfect world, but we don't live in a perfect world, and we live in a world where we're going to turn the lights off tomorrow.
Yeah, no, you buckle up. Buckle the fuck up. We could use another game.
So the game, it needs to come out, right? So that's kind of one part of it. As to what I just said, the thing that scares me the most, right? You could say, okay, well, why is this scary? The reason it's scary is what is the care level, and I kind of
buckle up, because we've seen shitty games take a long time to come out. Okay, so just buckle up and do it.
Just mention it, but if this is a contractual obligation, if nobody is happy, Square Enix cannot be happy here, right? And I mean, look, I know there's been all the back and forth, and I know certain people paint certain groups in this story as the villain, right? So people will paint Square Enix as the villain, Deck 9, sometimes both, sometimes one or the other. But let me kind of like take a step back and like say something a little bit, that's not part of that. Nobody's happy with this. Square Enix cannot possibly be happy with what happened. Whether they caused it or not, we're not really talking about that, right? Whether they caused it or not, they cannot be happy with what's going on right now. And there's no way, right? So they're not happy. And then you have Deck 9, who they probably aren't happy. They're having people, their friends, their colleagues, fired, okay? And, they might feel pressured to do the game certain ways that they might not be comfortable with. They maybe didn't. I mean, what are the odds that they didn't even really want to do a Life is Strange Double Exposure in the first place? And I mean, weren't there rumors in the first place that
it came off that way?
They wanted to do something, again, kind of different. Like, I don't think going to Max was their first idea. I'd actually have to go back to, like, watch my own videos because I'm sure I covered all of these rumors. But I'm
pretty sure it was the shareholder. I don't know if shareholders get a say, but I'm pretty sure it's somebody that made perhaps Deck 9. And so the developers, you got to go back to what was a success the first time. But what made it a success was the bond between Max and Chloe. Just the overall storytelling and the tough choices. You don't get that with Double Exposure. It just feels it was a good game. I would say I was entertained, but it wasn't emotionally invested as the first one in the prequel.
There was that rumor. I definitely remember vaguely like that.
So it comes off dry there.
Like, this wasn't even their first go. So it's like, all right, to do Double Exposure and Double Exposure 2 was probably not their like number one thing they wanted, or to do Max. And again, whether like that's the right decision, wrong decision, whether they could have made a better game or not. Again, like that is you can have a talk about that, and maybe we can one day. But for purposes of this, it doesn't really matter, because again, what I'm kind of talking about is, all right, look, and here's another thing. Like, watering it all down, Max Caulfield, no Max Caulfield, Hannah Telle, and Life is Strange, and what that all means to us, almost putting that stuff aside. You're charging for a product, okay? You're releasing a product into the world, and you're charging people. It's not free entertainment, right? You're putting a price tag on it.
Should have been a bit cheaper, but you know.
You need to have some sort of like you have to have some sort of belief in that product, and that can really go either way. Like that can maybe make me a little optimistic, and it does. It makes me want to be optimistic, where it's like, hey, even if you know that your job is expiring in a year, you're still working on something. You still have pride. You still have like you want that thing to do good. And then and the executives, let's say, you're charging for it. People are paying money for this stuff, and you can't just put it out there and have nobody be happy. Happy with the end product. So, and that kind of I wrestle with back and forth, ever since I read this, where you want look if they're going to release a Double Exposure Part 2 from like the money side and the product side, you better like I don't care if people are being fired. I don't care, well, I do care, okay, but I mean I'm just saying, in this context, you need to hopefully have put something into that game. Like it needs to be worth it. And then from like the
I know what you
lore
mean.
and the Life is
Yeah.
Strange part, what are we doing? We're in such a complicated, situation here. Like the franchise we all love, or maybe someone like me. I've said before, like I love some of these games more than others. But like, and even Max, like Max is one of my favorite all time favorite characters. One of the highest ones on my list. Okay. So you bring her back, you do what you do with Double Exposure. Why are we in this situation? Why are we in where we're rushing this second game? Nobody really even wants to do it, but like somebody signed a contract somewhere, and that obviously means they have to do it. And it does. I mean, to be fair, it actually does. And what I mean? And like, here we are. We have to have a second game. It's probably going to be rushed. Who knows if the heart and soul that is necessary for these games to be impactful is even going to be there. And honestly, the odds would tell you it wouldn't be. The odds would tell you it would make it against it, because it's like everything is stacked against Deck 9. Everything is stacked against the Double Exposure 2. Why should you believe? You know what I mean? And, I'm an optimistic guy, and I generally give games chances, and I normally I throw a game a bone.
Well, I'm optimistic to a point. Like at this point, a lot of people have been laid off. So at this point, like I have to really dig deep for a good story, or they get laid off. Or are they going to get laid off anyway? Because if they are, they're just probably not going to give two fucks and just wrap up the story, and that's it. They're done. But if there is a chance that they can stay on board, then I think they'll try to create a good story. But if the company's over and the devs are getting fired anyway, I'm pragmatic or perhaps I don't know. I have no hopes for that. I'm not optimistic at all.
Far more than like the next YouTuber.
Not as I was.
I really, you can check my track record for a lot of different games. Probably more games than anybody on the internet. I really am like that. So I'm going to give it a chance. I want it to be good. I want to believe in it. But I'm also I'm not stupid. I'm not just blindly optimistic. I can see these things as well. So it's it's going to be an interesting path, because this game could release. This game could be revealed in the next like 6-12 months, and it could be coming out next fall. And again, like in this way, I actually really hope it's delayed. I really hope it's like a 2027 game, just to kind of give it a little room to breathe. But also, that's just sad. Deck 9, again, love them or hate them or paint them as the villain or the hero, these people that are standing up for themselves against Square Enix. It sounds like it's the end for them. Like you have these founders that are pretty much going to fire or leaders. I don't know if they're actually like the founders of Deck 9. The higher ups, right? They're firing everybody else, and they're all by themselves. Can they, what if they don't get a project? Well, they're done. They are literally, if they don't have somebody going to them and saying, hey, we'll give you $50 million to make this game, you can't hire anybody back. So it'll just be you. And eventually, like, what's the point, right? There is no studio. There is no Deck 9. So we could be living in the last year and a half of Deck 9 as a team, which is nuts. Honestly, really, really nuts. So let me know what you guys think.
Perhaps maybe give the game back to Don't Nod, but I don't know. At this point, I don't know what they're gonna do, but I guess we'll find out as time progresses, and we'll see what happens. That's all you can do. But yeah, let me know what you think about this video down in the comments below. Let me know what other gaming videos or media-related content you like me to react to. Like, subscribe, vibe, contribute today, and I will see you guys on live streams pretty soon. Take care of yourselves, and thank you for stopping by.